Today's episode touches on themes of violence against women. If this triggers you, please feel free to opt out. Our guest on the show today is Sheree Schonian, who is an author and advocate for domestic violence against women after experiencing her own DV relationship and fleeing with 2 kids. Sheree has gone on to educate, empower and inspire other women to leave abusive relationships. In Australia currently, 1 woman dies every week at the hands of a current or former partner, making violence against women one of the largest epidemics our country has ever seen. And following the Bondi stabbing attacks on April 13th, which was predominantly women-focused, I wanted to get Sheree on the show and ask her questions regarding her lived experience. Today's a powerful conversation, and I hope you like it. Welcome back to the Seriously Podcast. I'm your host, Annalise Gann, and this week we have Sheree Schonian.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on today. Now, I know today is a really sensitive subject for many, and myself included. We're talking about violence against women, and you're an advocate, you're an author, you do so much in the community to help other women. Sheree, can we start with your story?
Sure. So my story actually probably spans over 20 years of family and domestic violence. That's because before I got into my own personal relationship, where I stayed for 16 years, my mother was also in an abusive relationship, to the point where when I was about 9 years old, I almost tried to kill her abuser. Yes, what happened was I pulled out, I guess, a kitchen knife, probably about this big, and tried to lunge for her abuser because he was hurting my mummy.
Yeah.
You know, so you try to protect your mum, even though there's probably nothing that I could really have done at that age, being as small as I did. The only reason I guess I didn't connect was because our neighbours had heard the commotion and kind of ran in and grabbed me just before I sort of went forward to kind of get him. And then I got yelled at by him, smacked on the bottom and sent into my room. And that's kind of that moment that I remember. I don't actually remember a lot of my childhood.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I've suppressed a lot.
Really?
Yes. My sisters who were with me I guess when my mum was at the relationship, I had 2 younger sisters, and then my mum went on and had 2 other children with this man. They remember a lot of stuff that I don't remember.
Wow.
They'll be like, oh, I remember you locked us in the toilets when he was fighting with mum just to protect. And I was like, I did? Like, they'll come up and say things, but so that's one incident I remember. But another one that I think I will always remember is, I don't even know how old I was, to be honest, but we were sitting down watching cartoons, you know, like in the mornings before they used to have cartoons Saturday morning or something like that. And behind me I could hear all this commotion and screaming and banging, and I knew what was going on, obviously. And then I had to turn the TV up for my siblings so that they'd just get more engrossed in the TV. And then, you know, I could hear my mum saying, stop, you're hurting me, the screaming, the yelling, all of that. You know, and as a child, when you can't see what's happening, your imagination just runs wild. So mine was running wild. And then thankfully there was a knock at the door. Well, I thought, thankfully, what had happened was someone had actually come to see my mum's abuser and knocked on the door, and they spoke for a minute. And during that minute, I had turned around and looked at my mum, and she was on the floor in the fetal position. Her clothes had been torn from her. Her face was blood, bruised, tears running down her face. Her hair was stuck. Her hair was stuck to her face. It's an image I will never get out of my head, and I will never be able to forget, no matter how hard I tried or how hard I suppress it, because that was my mum.
Yeah, that's so hard.
It's so hard. And she just mouthed the words, it's okay. And it's just like, how is it okay? But I know it's not okay, but my mum's saying it's okay, so I just have to think it's okay. And then, unfortunately, he shut the front door and went back in and started abusing my mum again. Yeah. So then a few years later, you know, we grew up, and as I said, she had 2 children to this man. There came a point, I think when I was 12 years old, my mum had eventually left him and had a new partner. and my mum's new partner and him had a falling out. And unfortunately, I had to do, I think, one of the most hardest things for my mum was because he wanted his children to live with him. So my mum wanted to give them a better life because we grew up, we didn't have a lot of money. We had just a 3-bedroom Homes West home full of cockroaches, an outside toilet, so
Wow.
I didn't have a very fancy, childhood where he obviously could provide a bit more for them. So that's why he was fighting with my mum, because he wanted to take my siblings. So I had to step in and I guess say to him, just take them, just F off and take them.
Wow.
Because there was so much fighting, so much commotion happening. There was 5 kids. So at that point, everyone was just tired.
Yeah.
Just had enough, heartbroken. My mum was always crying because she was so stressed. So I had to do that. And she doesn't regret having to give them, because they've grown up beautifully and, had a good education. Not that we didn't have a good education, but, all of that sort of stuff. So the relationship with him now is good, I guess.
Right.
It's weird. But for me, I kind of be friendly with him because I have the siblings, and I don't want them to not have a relationship with their father in that sense. But then you fast forward 4 or 5 years later is when I got into my own abusive relationship.
So witnessing it growing up, that becomes your normality.
Pretty much.
It's familiar.
Yeah, it is.
Psychologically,
yes.
It would be strange if you didn't end up in that same situation.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't understand.
That's it. But it's kind of like, it's wrong. Like it's in your heart and in your head, it's wrong, but there's still something that says this is normal.
The conditioning from a young age.
Exactly. It is. That's what it is. And it's so weird. Like, I can say that now, that it's so weird, but in the moment it was just normal.
I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. So your personal relationship, you were in it for 16 years. Were you married?
No.
But you have 2 kids with your ex?
Yes.
So how did you meet? How did it start out?
Yeah, so this is going to sound really naughty of me, but I'm not a naughty girl.
I love naughty people.
So when I was 15, I got caught wagging from school. I don't even know if this generation says wagging anymore.
Means you skip school.
When you skip school, yeah, pretty much. So I had gotten in trouble and I got caught by the police in the city and then got taken back to school in the back of a paddy wagon, all of that. So then I went, my mum came and picked me up and I went home and I got in trouble and yelled at, grounded, all of that stuff. And then she called my dad. So my parents had split. And she called my dad and she was like, you need to take Sheree to come and live with you, because he lived in Mandurah. So it's like, you need to take Sheree, come and live with you. And my dad's like, I don't want her to live here. And then I heard my mum say, well, I don't want her to live here. Yeah, so in that moment, I think all my self-love, my self-worth, that I wasn't good enough, nobody wanted me, just ended, just disappeared from me. So then when I met my partner, I'm going to call him Nick, because it's just easier for me to say Nick than abuser. So when I met Nick, he showered me with love. He spoilt me, took me on dates, told me I was beautiful, all of the things that someone who's, I guess, broken inside wants to hear. And I think because of that, I latched on to him. So we met through mutual friends who knew him. We were from the same community, like the Thai community, so we kind of knew all the same sort of people. So that's kind of how we were introduced. My mum knew his mum, so it was, everybody knew everybody pretty much. So then we just sort of started dating and I just got swept off my feet, I guess.
So this is the thing that a lot of people don't realise. People say, why don't you just leave? But you are so... when you meet someone like that and they treat you good, their brain is going to try and get addicted to reaching that dopamine hit again.
Exactly.
and going back to that good place where you first started,
Exactly.
even though it's not actually how it is.
Yeah. And I was 16, so my
That's so
brain
young.
technically isn't even fully developed.
No. Yeah.
It's whatever you can get. And being a 16-year-old girl, all we want is someone to love us. We're at that real funny
Absolutely.
age in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So there were red flags, like standing out now.
Like
There
what?
were red flags. So I think one of the biggest red flags was it was my year 12 ball, and I'd gone to my year 12 ball with a friend before I'd met Nick, and I had just received like ball photos, and I had them in my room, and he'd come over one day because I was getting books to go to the library or something with him. So he'd come over and he'd come into my room and saw my ball photos and tore up all my ball photos that I'd had photos with the friend that I'd gone to the ball with. So I have no year 12 ball photos
Oh,
at all. Although year 12 was a very long time ago, but I don't have any photos because of that. And then he started screaming and yelling and left. I grabbed my books and chased after him.
so the jealousy and then the verbal abuse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Which we probably wouldn't even have names for back then.
Exactly. Yeah. So you would have just thought it was, oh, he just loves me. He doesn't want me to have photos of any other boys. That's so sweet. You know, he just wants me for himself. So we think that's loving, which is what I think a lot of people can confuse sometimes. Like especially when you're really young, you just think, oh, he just loves me, but it can be red flags for something a lot more serious.
So how quickly into the relationships with Nick did things become physical?
3 months.
What?
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
So
so-
you endured literally 16 years.
Literally 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So the first time he hit me was over a phone bill. Yeah. So back in the day when you used to get phone bills sent to your house, you know, they'd list all the phone numbers and all of that stuff. So he had seen some phone calls through there, but they were phone calls to my previous little boyfriend. I call him my little boyfriend that I had before Nick because he had brought me the mobile phone. So there were calls between us because he was like, oh, your mobile phone bill's arrived because he put the phone bill in his name for me. So that's basically what it was over, just talking that there were a phone bill. So Nick grabbed the mobile phone that I had, threw it on the floor and smashed it to pieces. And so obviously I was crying, screaming, why'd you do that? It's nothing, blah, blah, blah. And with an open fist, he slapped me across the face. I'd never been slapped in the face before, not even by my parents. Immediately, I had a golf-sized ball come up on the left side of my face, bruising straight away. Like it was that hard that it just swelled up so quickly. So I actually can still remember the sting of that.
Wow.
And then the tears rolling down my face were like fire. Like it was just burning. My face was so just hot and sore. So I actually ran inside the house because we were at a friend's apartment. So I ran inside and they all sort of stopped and looked at me like, what are you doing in here? It was like I was an alien that literally had just dropped into the house. And then he chased me and his friends was like, just get out. I don't want this in the house. And I was like, oh, okay. So then, you know.
What about me?
Yeah, exactly. So then I got out of the house and then I went and sat on the curb of the road. It was actually in East Victoria Park, of all places, that I remember. So I just sat down on the curb and my whole soul, my whole innocence just died. It just got left on the side of the road that night. And then Nick came and found me and he was crying and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. I just love you again so much. You made me do it. I thought you were going to leave me for him. I promise I'll never do it again. All of the BS that comes with it. And then I was like, okay, no worries. So then we jumped in the car and he dropped me home. And it was a winter's night, actually, I remember, because my mum was sitting in front of the heater when I got home with the TV on. Weird what you can remember when you talk about it. And I walked inside the house and I said to her, I got kicked in the face. No, so I got hit in the face by a soccer ball today at a soccer match. And that was my excuse to explain how I had the golf-sized lump on my face and the bruising. So I had made that lie up on the drive home, which was probably like a 15-minute drive home.
Can I ask why you didn't tell your mum? Were you like, because for me, right, if something I've been in a DV relationship in my early 20s, I felt an immense amount of shame
Yes.
and guilt for their actions.
Yes.
Did you feel like that?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I think for me, like obviously the shame and embarrassment that comes around being DV is really strong. But I
Yes.
think a bit more so for me personally was because my mum was in a DV relationship and I feel like I should have known better, if that makes sense, because I'd witnessed her go through it. I had to step up and be a mum at 10 years old for my siblings when mum couldn't get out of bed because she was so bruised and broken pretty much, you know. So then being someone who's seen all of that and then now gone and done that myself, I think there was just that little bit more shame and embarrassment. But I was also, I guess, so in love with Nick that I didn't want to lose him
Okay.
in that sense as well.
And there's layers because, like, my next question to you is a lot of people who are uneducated on the topic will say, well, why don't women just leave? Yeah. It's a common thing that people say, which really annoys me because, as you said before, there's layers.
Yes.
So they're nice, they're abusive, and then they're nice again. It's like a sandwich, right? So what are the stages of abuse? Like, how does it happen in terms of, like, you get conditioned almost?
You do. And funny enough, I actually always say abusers are very smart.
They are.
Because they will come to you and then they will be really nice because then they can work out exactly who you are, what little weaknesses you have, what can trigger you, and then eventually they'll start to play on that. You know, like for me, I just didn't feel like I was worthy of anybody's love, and then him knowing that, he just love bombed me, just gave me all the love that I wanted to the point where I needed to have him to have that love. And then he'd start to slowly, you know, mentally abuse or emotionally abuse, but in small doses so that it became normal and then I accepted it. So he would never, at the start, you would never go straight to, let's say, dropping something really hard because he wouldn't know how I'd take it. So if it was just a little bit at a time and then slowly it becomes normal, then you accept it and then it's normal. If, you know, do you know get what I mean? Like it
becomes normal, like your reality.
Yeah, it is. And it's just testing. And then you have, you know, this, but with abuse, it always runs in a cycle.
Right. So what's that cycle?
So the cycle is, for example, the loving, caring, the amazing man you fell in love with, the man, I can see a future with him. I love him so much. And then slowly you'll start to see he may get stressed or whatever. And then little bits of verbal abuse will come out or mental abuse, or he'll have a moment where he just backhands you, for example. And then he'll spend the next 2 weeks making it up to you. I'm sorry, I love you, this, blah, blah, blah. And then everything's really good for a little while and then it just starts again. So it literally just goes in a cycle, which is in relation, going to name drop my book right here, Love, Bruises and Bullshit. Because you have your love moment, then you may get your bruises or some form of abuse really harsh, and then you hear all the bullshit that comes after it.
Right.
Which is, I love you, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again, you made me do it, all of that. And then you're great for a little while, then it happens again. So that's when we say we have to try to break that cycle.
Hey guys, if you've loved listening to the Seriously podcast, we'd really appreciate a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify podcasts. It keeps us making incredible content for all of you to hear. Thanks so much. You ended up escaping your relationship after 16 years with Nick with your 2 kids. So you were together for 16 years. That's a very long time. So you endured abuse, I'm guessing, through those
Yes,
entire.
the entire, 16 years.
So did you come to a point where you were like so beaten down that you didn't feel like it was even a possibility to leave? Did it ever occur to you like prior to 16 years? Or were you, so as you said, you were in love
Yes,
and conditioned?
yes.
What was the process of that like?
To get to leave?
Yeah.
Do you mean? So there were moments where I had tried to take my own life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
More than once.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't. Was when I had children,
Oh, wow.
and I think because I had my first daughter 5 years into our relationship, and then I had my son. So it was. I tried, but I don't think I didn't want to at the same time because of my children, but I also knew my children would be taken care of by my family, like my side of the family, and they would fight to death, literally, for my kids and for not him to have them.
Mm-hmm.
But I also didn't want to leave them.
Yeah.
But I also felt I couldn't go on anymore because I isolated myself a lot from everybody. So I didn't have anyone. I had people I could turn to, but I didn't want to turn to them because, as we said before, shame and embarrassment is a huge thing that is involved with DV. So during the 16 years, I think I left, or I tried to leave twice.
Okay.
Obviously unsuccessful
Yep.
both times,
Yep.
but it was more towards, I guess, the last few years of the relationship. So I would have stayed a solid 13 years or something
Wow.
before I even considered it. One time I tried to leave was, I just had enough. And I called my dad and he came and got me. My dad still lives in Mandurah. And so I went up to Mandurah and then Nick followed us up to Mandurah and then started like screaming and banging on the door. And then everyone came out. My dad was just in his jocks. He was like running down the street. But somehow my youngest son had gotten out of the house. And so Nick had grabbed my son and started running away with him. So my dad, who was at that time quite overweight, ran down the street in his jocks and just everyone, it's not a funny situation, but it was the funniest thing to see.
Yeah.
Your dad, who's, 100 and something kilos in his jocks running down the street, managed to chase Nick down with my son and grab the son. And then it was a lot of police came. And then I was at my dad's, but my dad unfortunately wasn't able to keep us there for long because he had a smaller house. So I had to come back to Perth. And so then I don't even remember where I moved into, but then Nick was always there. He would actually park his car across the street and sleep in his car.
So stalk you.
It's pretty much stalk me, but his excuse was like, oh, I want to walk the kids to school in the morning. I want them to see that I'm still here. And being the person I am, I felt sorry for him.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, okay, we'll just come and stay in the house, just stay in the lounge, and then made his way back into the bedroom. Then the relationship continued again. But the final time for me when I guess I finally left was after, 16 years. I'd been held hostage for 3 days, pretty much.
What do you mean?
So I was hostage. I was like, sorry, I had to go everywhere he went with my children who were probably 8 and 5, so very young still. At the time, I had to go to a friend's place with him, sit on the floor like a dog whilst he drank and ate at his feet, basically. I wasn't even allowed to go to the toilet without him following me. I wasn't allowed to do anything. The kids were in a different room, so they didn't see that. They were the other children watching cartoons, so they didn't see that sort of stuff. But the room was full of people, like his friends and their wives, and they all saw me and they didn't say anything. That's the thing, nobody called any of it out. I was only allowed to talk if someone asked me something, I had to like look at him and he would nod his head as in, yeah, you can answer. Or he would answer for me, yes. And then I would go, so, he would be like, okay, 2 a.m. He'd be like, oh, you can go home now. Go straight home, go to sleep. But I'd get home and an hour later, he'd be like, no, you have to come back now. And this is with my 2 kids. I had to take my 2 kids in and out of bed, take them around, wake them up, all of that stuff. And then eventually I just kind of snapped and I was like, no, F this. I'm done. I'm leaving. Even leaving was hard. I had to call my mum and tell my mum, I need you to come and pick me up. So my family had an idea what was going on, but never really said anything. And I think they just wanted to keep me close in a sense instead of pushing me away. So having to call my mum and actually say, I need you to come and get me because I'm leaving I spent probably like an hour or so fighting with myself whether to call her or not to come and get me, even though I knew I needed her to come. So she had a 20-minute drive. So I finally called her and she drove. And during that 20 minutes, I packed up some clothing, all of our important information, passports, birth certificates, all of that, my kids' favourite toys, and went to leave with the suitcases, and he pushed me down 2 flights of stairs. And as I was rolling, the suitcases came down with me. So I'm rolling, suitcases are rolling, I'm on the ground, the kids are in the front room, they can hear what's happening, but they can't really see. And then he's screaming and yelling, and he's like, that's what you get, for trying to leave me.
Wow.
That's
I'm
what you
sorry.
get. So then he was screaming and yelling, and he's like, oh, you're not going to go anywhere. You're never leaving. And then thankfully my mum rocked up. So when my mum rocked up, he turned into a completely different person.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Was boiling his eyes out, crying, screaming, I don't know why she's leaving me. He called my mum.
What a manipulator.
Yes. So
Ew.
never in the 16 years of our relation had he ever called my mum. He'd always called her auntie, which is something that we do, like the Thai culture. We call them auntie. So he was like, Mum, she's leaving me. And I was like, what the heck? What are you trying to do? My mum's on my side.
Yeah.
My side.
That's
She's never
what controlling people do.
Exactly.
They try and manipulate the people who love you the most. Yeah.
That's it. So then you think I would just be able to leave easily? No. So we got out the front door, and our house had a gate that you had to press. He had the control, the remote. And we had a shitty bombed car because he didn't work. I had to work. So I worked this entire relationship even after I had kids. So the whole relationship I was working full time whilst having my kids and going through this at home. And he was gambling and doing methamphetamine, so he just wasn't working at this point. So we had this shitty little white Lancer, and I went to, try to get in it. He's like, you can't take the car. I paid for the car. Yeah. So I was like, okay, no worries, whatever. I'm trying to get out. I'm like, open the gate. And he's like, no. He's like, I want $5,000 for you to be able to leave. I now had to try to pay my way out of this relationship. And I was like, I don't have $5,000. Like, where am I going to get $5,000 from? It was a Saturday, so I couldn't even go to the bank if I wanted to. And he's like, well, you got to go get me some money or you can't leave. I had to leave my mum and my 2 kids there, take my mum's car and drive around to try to get money.
Babe.
Yes. The most I could get was $2,000. So I came back. I said, here's $2,000. He's like, oh, that's fine. Yes.
What is wrong with this person?
Yeah.
Oh, not even a person.
Not even. So then I got in the car and I broke down in that car. I don't know why though. I don't know. It was just a feeling that came over me. Like, I don't know if I was happy that I was leaving or if I was scared. It was, I guess, also the unknown of who am I now? In that moment, you have so many emotions, so much happening. Then I went to my sister's because he didn't know where she lived.
Oh, perfect.
Well, I thought.
Oh, no.
So I went to my sister's and I lived on her floor for 3 months. with my 2 children, and I still went to work every day.
Wow.
After that, still got my kids to school, still went to work every day. And when I said we thought, he didn't know where my sister lived, whilst my mum was waiting for me to come out of the house, she decided to clean her car. She threw away some mail in my recycling bin.
Oh, no.
So he went through the recycling bin and then saw where she lived, which was with my sister at the time. So he rocked up to my sister's house one stage, and that broke me even more.
Yeah, you're like, I've done all this work to get out. I've changed my life. I'm
Yes.
going to work. I'm looking after the kids.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
literally
it.
sleeping on the floor. And then you get that one piece of information and you use it against me.
Yeah. So
That must have been heartbreaking.
it was, because I had now brought the devil to my sister's house, and she had a newborn baby. So when he rocked up, my brother-in-law and his friend were actually outside, so they managed to talk him down. But I remember standing at her front door, which was closed, with a metal baseball bat. So I'm not a violent person, sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It was in that moment, as I said, I'd brought the devil to her house, and I was ready to just smack him in the head with this baseball bat if he come into the house. Wasn't even for to protect me.
Yeah.
But it was her and her baby.
Yeah.
Because I was like, she's doing me something, helping me, and this is how I repaid her, by him coming here. So she went and got a violent restraining order the next day. And so he never showed up. But the first, I guess, a month of leaving, I got incredibly sick, just from the stress, because even though I left, that didn't stop the abuse. It didn't stop the verbal abuse. It didn't stop the emotional abuse, the psychological abuse. I was getting probably 200 missed calls a day if I didn't answer the phone. Texts ranging from, I love you, I miss you so much, please come home, we'll work it out, I'll be a metal man, to F you stupid slut, I'm going to throw acid on your face, who's ever going to want you, you're so ugly and you've got 2 kids, you're so fat, and then flipping again, I'm so sorry. So just having that constantly.
Wow. So he had a full psychotic breakdown.
Pretty much. And then because I was so stressed of leaving and sleeping on the floor, still going to work, still going. So I was a pre-primary teacher.
Wow.
So I had to put on that, hi, every morning for 5-year-olds, when inside you're just dying. Broken. All of that sort of stuff. So then I think all of the abuse that came, it was just after I just kind of crashed and ended up in hospital and everything as well. And then even after leaving, which was in September, there was still, he had a fight with a male friend that had come with me so that he could see the kids, because I still being the person I am, I still wanted him to have a relationship with the kids.
Of course. But who wouldn't want that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they wanted it. So he saw, because I made eye contact with my friend because I was freaking out, because we were in a public place. He pulled up and stopped in the road and didn't park the car and actually jumped out of the car with a pole. So he had come to see his kids, but he had come for a fight. So that day, there was a fight in front of my children, in front of KFC, blood everywhere. And the saddest thing was people filmed it. Nobody tried to stop it. Nobody called the police. And it wasn't until I said, there's children here, somebody help me, that they actually called the police. So then the next day I went and got a VRO.
Yeah.
Which he breached.
So you get the VRO. Are you still in contact?
After that day, no, I stopped.
Really?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
So March of 2016 was the last time he saw the kids.
Wow.
But I have seen him, because we've had to go to court just for the breaches in the VRO. So I've seen him a couple of times, and I've actually saw him last year in the shops. So I have seen him a couple of times just outside. the first few times I had panic attacks, like
Yep.
hard.
Yep.
When I had the VRO, he actually sent me a text just saying, I miss you and the kids. This is my number if you need anything. That alone, I just locked myself in the closet in the dark and just hid in the corner and just cried to the point where I couldn't breathe. Because I was like, oh my gosh, it's all going to start again. It's all going to start. I can't deal with it. I've moved on. I'm good. Like, I'm getting better. So then, because of that breach, I had to see him in court. And then seeing him out the first time, I froze. I couldn't move. I had to get my girlfriend's husband to come and walk me to the car just so I could move. And then in the shops, again, just hiding. I literally run in the shop and hide. And then I start to cry. But the last time I said, what are you doing? Like, I had to really just say, stop. He doesn't have control over you anymore.
That's the thing.
You've got to stop. But you move on, and I've done so much therapy, but it's the triggers, and you don't know, just seeing him or hearing his voice, which is really, scary, confronting. It's just hard.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're out of that. It's
Yeah.
been nearly 8 years.
Yes,
Have you moved on?
I have.
So are you in a relationship now?
Yes.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
And are you happy?
I am. I am really happy. And I think what I can say is my past relationship, as bad as it was, it taught me what I will accept and what I won't accept now. It's given me those boundaries, and it sucks that I had to go through all the shit that I went through to understand this. But in also saying that, that's made me the person I am today. All of that. And it helps when you have a partner now who's understanding and supporting, and doesn't think that I'm just being a weirdo if I flinch at the start
Of course.
of a new relationship, because I've had 2 serious relationships since then. And the first one that I had, funny enough, I was always trying to make him fight with me because he was so calm, and I was like, why aren't you fighting with me?
You're used to the chaos.
The chaos.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I don't have to fight with you anymore. You've had enough fighting for your lifetime. And I was like, well, no, like argue with me, fight with me. And I was always self-sabotaging, like everything, because I always felt if I was getting too happy, something was around the corner. So let me just ruin it before someone else can ruin it. So then I can kind of blame myself and I can deal with it in that sense. Yeah.
It's like self-assurance. Like deep down, we
Exactly.
want to know we're right.
Yes.
And if I ruin it first, well, that's my life.
Exactly.
I'm used to that.
That's it.
Yeah. So for those listening who might be experiencing DV relationship mentally, spiritually, physically, or emotionally, or financially as well, where can they go to get help?
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of help out there, and when you're I guess in the relationship, it's hard to find,
Yes.
which is really funny. It's not until I actually stepped out of it that I found all the services to help me. So for financial help, you've got things like your toolkit that can help you. You've got 1-800-RESPECT is a good one that you can call and help. They're ones that you can sort of talk to if you are in crisis, which then, like, crisis care can help find housing for you, like a women's refuge if you need to get out straight away. I can really recommend, like, when you're out and you're ready to do counselling, which I am now a qualified counsellor, and I'm
Oh, you're taking bookings?
taking bookings, yes.
Oh.
So from next week. So, and with that, it's just having someone to talk to who's been through the same thing, really understanding. But for someone going through DV, I can really just say, like, just don't give up hope. Like, and also don't be too hard on yourself, because, like, if you're trying to leave and you've already left once or twice and you've gone back, just don't think you're a failure, because it can take up to 7 times before you can actually successfully leave. And just remember that each time you're just getting stronger and stronger. But leave when it's safe to, like, because for women, leaving is actually the most dangerous time. That's when, unfortunately, most women are being killed or, beaten really badly. And also on anniversaries of leaving is when women are getting killed the most. Another thing I would say is reach out, talk to somebody. As easy it is to isolate yourself because you want to not share your shame and embarrassment, and you're shamed and embarrassed, you just want to be it to yourself. There are a lot of other women out there going through the same thing, and there are women who've been through it, and then they can help you, they can be your support. But just stay strong, really. You are strong, I would say, because you're surviving every day. It takes a strong person to have to sit in that relationship for so long. So this mindset of sometimes we're like, oh, we're so weak, we can allow a person to do this. As hard as in that moment, try to flip that switch and just be like, I'm strong enough to be here. I'm still here. I'm going to fight my way out of this. And I know it's hard. I freaking know how hard it is to get there. But just keep going. And another thing, I think, to women who have children, for me, it was also, I want to give my children a 2-parent household. Sometimes staying for that reason is actually doing more damage to your children because they're now witnessing their abuse. They're now witnessing what's an unhealthy relationship that's kind of been made healthy.
And that's a ripple effect for their future.
Exactly. And then
unfortunately,
that's it. And that's continuing the cycle for them. And I say that is because my children had to go through therapy when we left. The thing, I'm going to cry again, I think, for me was my daughter was 12 years old, and now I'm a hopeless romantic. I love love. She turned around and said to me, I never want to fall in love at 12. And she said, I never want to have a boyfriend. That just broke me. I was like, you're 12. That's the time when we fantasize about, our beautiful weddings and our white picket fences and all of that. So, and she said that was because of the relationship I had with her dad and what she saw, what it did to me. And she even blamed herself for the way her father was. She said, was it because I was born that he went this way?
It's no one's fault but the abuser.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they need to realise that. So we've had mutual friends, and Nick's turned around to them and said, when's it my turn for everything to be good? But how is it going to be good for you if you're still doing the same things? He's moved on, and I know for a fact that he's done the same thing to his next partner.
Of course.
And that he still is on the drugs and everything like that. So if you're not, he can't say when's it going to happen if he's not willing to change.
Exactly. And people don't change without a lot of help.
Yes, exactly.
Sheree, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. Everything that you've said will help a lot of women.
Yes.
And kids, and I'm really grateful that you've come on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And just if anybody, I do have social media. So
yes, where can people find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram, my Facebook, and my website are all called I Am Sheree. Just a quick little background on that. It's called I Am Sheree basically because through everything I've been through, I'm always just been Sheree.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. Seriously, you've been amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for tuning in this week. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next week for another guest. Bye.